Welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. Today's reading is the final episode of the You Through the Houses series. So we have reached the 12th house, the house of mystery, privacy, depth psychology, spiritual and empathic connection. Very sort of mysterious, very strange, very deep house. And so we will be very much exploring almost Persephone's journey to the underworld in looking at the 12th house. You know, what are the depths psychologically, spiritually, and in terms of real creation that you maybe keep private or only for those that are closest to you. So that's the sort of energy that we're going to be looking at in this particular episode. If you're familiar with this series, then you know that the structure is a little bit different to my other pick a card readings, in as much as after I do the general introduction, I do also do a section on astrology, very high level section on astrology around the 12th house, looking at what it means to have different signs in the 12th house and what it means to have different planets in the 12th house. So if you are familiar with your chart, you will know what to listen to for that, and that might be of interest to you. It's probably very high level for any astrologers, though any astrologers who want to listen are more than welcome. They may want to add comments or thoughts in the comments section for the enrichment of everyone else. So that's more than welcome if you want to do that. But if you don't know your chart, and if you don't know your chart but you know what your time of birth, place of birth and date of birth are, you can go to free sites online that will give you the chart if you have that information, but you do need to know the time of birth to be able to work out what planets are in what houses and what signs are in what houses. So that's sort of up to you. But if you have that information, then certainly that might be of interest to you, that section. But you don't have to know that for these readings to resonate, because they're not really based on any particular sign or any particular planet. It's intuitively, you're intuitively drawn to the reading just as you would with any other pick a card reading. And when we get to the pick a pile section after the astrology section, I'll go through a little bit of the logic of how I've sort of set this up and how that might help in intuitively being drawn to your reading. So you don't need to listen to the astrology section for this to work. And if that's not of interest to you, just jump straight to the pick a pile section now and we'll see you there. For those who do want to be listening to the astrology section, I'm going to start that now. So basically what this is, as I say, it's very high level. It's just looking at what it means to have the different signs in the house and in the different planets. This is drawn from my own astrology knowledge over years of sort of living with astrologers and talking astrology, but also I have supplemented it by looking at reputable sites online just to make sure that I get the true distillation of what I feel is the best distillation for a high level overview. So I'm going to start with what it means to have various signs in the 12th house, and then I'm going to look at the planets. So an Aries 12th house. Your ambitions, though they're significant, may be a bit secret or hidden. You may suppress some of your more assertive nature. With Aries has a sort of assertive and sort of I want to be first type nature. And you may suppress some of that, keep it hidden. It may be sort of something that is part of a strategic thing ambitiously for you, and you don't show your cards very quickly. If you have a Taurian 12th house, you want your lifestyle to be private. What you do, what you enjoy, how you enjoy it is your business and not anybody else's. You may be a bit stubborn around that sort of thing, or fixed about what you enjoy, what you will do and what you will share. But again, if there's that sort of issue with other people, you won't necessarily show it to them. But you do, your psychology is about how to manifest a good, secure and enjoyable life. A Geminian 12th house, you very intense communications, but tend to be more in private or one-on-one. You're not really somebody for telling everybody your business. You know, you're not really one for gossip. In fact, you probably would dislike gossip, find it very disconcerting. You like study, you like to learn in private as well. So everything that you kind of bring in on that kind of intellectual level is sort of done through you and what you feel resonant with, rather than necessarily what society might tell you you have to learn. A Cancerian 12th house, very family, loved one oriented, very protective, keep that sort of thing. Your family's private business is their private business. A lot of your psychological sort of underpinnings are connected to family security, emotional security and so forth. Your emotions may often be hidden or veiled. Only the people closest to you probably know what you're feeling. A Leonian 12th house, you've got drama and creativity in your bones, but it's probably very private again. You're probably very artistic or creative or performative when you're with people that you feel comfortable with. You may yearn for recognition, but you could also be a bit shy. So there could be a bit of a push-pull between wanting to be seen and wanting your privacy. A Virgoan 12th house means that your private life and your psychology and all of those sort of things that really matter to you on a deep level are very structured. You like everything in its place. You want to know what you think and feel about things. You want to understand. You'd be quite forensic about understanding your psychology and probably be drawn to psychological frameworks and that kind of thing. You're very connected on a healing and empathic way spiritually. Again, you have those sort of abilities, but they're structured. They're in the material world. A Libran 12th house gives you a deep sense of personal justice and social justice and all those sort of things. You look to balance your psychological impulses and to be fair. You'd be the first person to question if you were emotionally reacting to something, whether that was fair to do and whether you were being fair to others. You may also want to keep anything legal or sort of academic very confidential. With Scorpio in the 12th house, highly psychic. Your love life, your passions, all of those sort of things are very private and very deep and very deeply felt. Very intense feelings, and you protect them. You don't display them to other people. Sagittarian 12th house means that you have a very private need for freedom. Again, you may not express that depending upon the relationships, workplaces, etc. that you're in, but ultimately underneath, your psychology needs to be free. You would hate manipulation or any sense of manipulation or trying to tie you into particular philosophies or ways of thinking. Your personal philosophies are yours and you probably don't share them except with those that you really care about or you feel close to. And your love for learning is connected to your self-development and your self-understanding. A Capricornian 12th house means that you're probably ambitious, but it's more to be the power behind the scenes, more the Machiavelli than the king, so to speak, a kingmaker. You have very conservative sort of values, and I don't mean that necessarily politically, but once you have a value, once you believe in something, you think it's materially true and it's emotionally and psychologically resonant to you, you stick to it. You aren't sort of someone who wants to sort of do the wild and different. You care about your money and status, but it's not an open thing. You don't show that openly. With Aquarius in the 12th house, you might be a bit detached. Your philosophy, your psychology, a bit otherworldly, a bit futuristic, not a bit more transpersonal, even though I think that this house is very personal. It's very deep sort of psychology. You would always have that overlay, which is how does this fit in with the sort of broader world and so forth. But again, you don't necessarily share that if this is in the 12th house. You could seem aloof with some people. And with Pisces in the 12th house, it's Pisces' house, so you're at home there, so to speak. Deeply psychic, deeply intuitive, probably kind of move between the worlds really easily. May sometimes get a bit lost in that sort of stuff, so you need to sort of find grounding in other areas of your chart. Very rich in a spiritual life. Okay, so if you have planets, so the planets in the 12th house, the sun in the 12th house makes you very introspective. You definitely need your space and you avoid the spotlight by and large. Very private. Your serving others makes you shine and you're very compassionate. With the moon in the 12th house, emotionally you're attracted to the numinous, to the different, to the spiritual. You may have some delayed emotional responses. People may not know how you feel about things immediately. You need to kind of feel them and consider them at depth. You could be hypersensitive, very empathic, very psychic. Mercury in the 12th house means you won't be quick to communicate, very private about what you're thinking, a bit secretive even. You can overanalyze everything, and you like a variety of information and stimuli and to be a problem solver. With Venus in the 12th house, you're big on romance and may have, some issues around boundaries. What is you and what is the other? How much do you connect and commune with the loved ones and so forth. You could also have secret lovers, and you may associate love with sacrifice to some degree. With Mars in the 12th house, you could struggle to assert yourself. You're very resourceful, very unselfish, but you can neglect your own needs, or you could be a bit too romantic. So it's sort of like not a house that Mars's general sort of get on with it energy feels comfortable in. If you have Jupiter in the 12th house, you may seem like a guardian angel to others, or you may literally have a guardian angel. It's a bit of a signature for that. You have an inborn faith in the universe, and you enjoy solitude and being able to commune mystically. Saturn in the 12th house can push life's sort of realities into your unconscious. So it's the things that you don't see as pleasant, you may suppress. You could have some sort of unexplained guilt because you're doing that because you're not sorting it through. Saturn's not comfortable with all this emotional depth stuff to some degree. And there could be a fear of the unknown, which makes you feel lonely. You very much value self-control. So you'd rather think that you could put some boundaries around things rather than explore them. With Uranus in the 12th house, you have an altruistic wish to change the world. You can be either direct or indirect in the way that you do it. You very much value personal freedom and you like creative people. So those are the people that you'll draw towards you. They're the people that will make you sort of understand yourself at a deeper level. With Neptune in the 12th house, exceptional intuition, very, very psychic, very sensitive, could be a bit timid, spiritual. You feel vulnerable in normal life. You really do like the sort of life in between the worlds, the numinous, the magical. With Pluto in the 12th house, you have a very deep psychological sort of transformative energy. You like that. You'd like psychoanalysis. You'd like hypnotism. You'd like anything that took you to the depths. You're not afraid of it. You really like to generate and regenerate through that energy. You understand others very well. You could be an amazing healer, kind of shamanic, really. You're also likely to be very secretive. Now, Chiron is an asteroid, but it shows where there might have been some wounding in earlier life. So with Chiron in the 12th, there could have been some tension in the family around sort of upbringing around psychic or psychological things. So it could be that there was a lack of comfort around looking into the depths or around spiritual or psychic things. And so now you have this sort of like psychic healing empathic ability, and it'd be very strong with Chiron, but you need to use these, rather than just shut them off. You might be a little bit nervous about that side of things. Okay, so that's just a very high overview of the astrology of the 12th house. So now in the timestamps, we're going to move to where we look at the pile choice. So welcome to those that jump straight to the pile choice, and thank you for sticking with me, those who wanted to listen to the astrology. So as I said, I'll put down the numbers as I always do, but for the pile choice, you don't have to sort of go to a pile that looks like it's representing the sign that you have in the 12th house. That's not necessary. You don't need to know that. But I have used 4 different packs to represent the different energies of the different elements, so the signs that connect with that. Doesn't necessarily mean that anything under the Knight of Wands here is going to be all around fire signs in the 12th house. I don't know what the cards are underneath there. They're intuitively pulled for the energy for the collective that will be drawn to the particular readings. But I thought for some, this may be how to help you find a reading that you might resonate with if you don't sort of have an immediate sort of sense, or you don't choose by the numbers and so forth. So the different packs and what they represent for the different readings. So for pile 1, we have the Crystal Unity Tarot. I'm using the Knights because they represent number 12 in a sense in the sort of suits in the tarot. So the Knight of Cups for the water elements. For pile 2, we have the fire elements represented by the Knight of Wands from the Flights of Fantasy Tarot. For pile 3, we have the earth element represented by Knight of Coins from the Somnia Tarot. And for pile 4, we have Knight of Swords representing the air elements from the White Fly Tarot. You may be drawn to one of these particular tarots if you're familiar with it, or the imagery or the energy or even the element might draw to you regardless of whether you know what your sign is in the 12th house. But as I say, it's not going to necessarily, and don't go too much by what these different cards mean. I don't think that we're necessarily going to see someone incredibly romantic in pile 1 and incredibly sort of quick and sort of moving forward with decisions in pile 4. So I'm not really using the energy of the knights in a sense that they would classically be used. It's more around the energies, the elements, if that helps you. But you can of course go to more than one reading, and if you know what reading or readings you want to go to, the timestamps are in the description box below. If you need to pause and contemplate before doing so, do so. But when you're ready, I'll see you there. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So these are some of the cards that were under the Knight of Cups that brought you here. There's some others here that we'll also look at before we move to the tarot. But as I said, for the 12th house, we're looking at depth psychology, we're looking at sort of spiritual energy, magic energy, we're looking at the things that we keep hidden, sometimes even from ourselves. So there is going to be a kind of a walk in the underworld aspect to all of this. And so the cards and the decks that I'm using are meant to pick up those things so that we consider what it is that we hide and why, what it is that's at the depths for us and so forth. So there's a card from the Oracle of Shadows and Light, one from the Vampire Oracle, because I feel they're both kind of energies that are around the 12th house, with a archetype oracle, some stuff around magical energy, and also sort of Greek mythology for kind of the underlying sort of psychological narrative of what's going on with your 12th house. And I think that the people who've come here, there's a lot around love and relationships and connections and dealing with the past and almost wanting to make light of it and pretend that issues aren't there, and sort of make out almost like I am completely able to be whoever I want to be in relationships. I don't need anybody, I don't need any help or whatever. And part of it might be because of sort of patterns from the past that you don't want to address or don't want to look into. But there is a need now to think about that for some reason. It may be because there's a new love that could be coming in that might be suppressed if you didn't do it, or it might be that it's just starting to take its toll on you. Now, why I say it, firstly, we've got the Mildew Fairy. This is all about where emotions are stuck, where things haven't been processed, where they just kind of are left to grow and build, but they're not looked at. They're sort of in the corners of the mind, the corners of the house, and so forth. So there's a call from this card to really start to consider that. And it's interesting that with part of the spiritual energy for you here is Avenoir, which is about using magical energy to make peace with your past. So I feel like there's something maybe from even back to childhood, or certainly maybe a previous relationship, where you haven't fully taken in and worked out what the secrets were associated with that, what was going on. It may even have been a secret relationship, or you may have felt that you've had to keep your emotional needs secret in some level, not be able to express them because of the people that you've been around or your expectations and so forth. So there's something in your psychology, in your sort of spiritual nature, which is about now starting to emerge and realize that you need to clear some of that out, air it out. And that could be anything from just doing it yourself through sort of like shadow work or meditative practice, through to seeing someone like a counselor or finding a good friend that you really feel you can kind of be open with. It's difficult for you because this is something you like to keep secret, because with the flirt archetype, you like to present yourself as someone who doesn't take necessarily love too seriously, or when things don't work out, that's fine. There's plenty of other fish in the sea, all of that kind of energy. You like to appear lighter than you actually are. And there's nothing wrong with the depths of what you do, but it's almost like you feel that's not, following the rules of some sort of, relationship game or something like that. So you want to appear to others as though a lot of this just kind of like just drifts off you. It's not sort of anything that sticks, but at the moment that you are keeping some of that within, and you need to look at how to clear it out. And you may need to get help to do it, as I say. So, and there's nothing wrong with going and seeing sort of professionals, or as I say, finding a good friend who you trust, who will be open to hearing this, whatever works for you. But there is a need to be a little bit more open about it with someone that you trust, around confidentiality, because we've got call for help here. There's times where you really do need backup. You need to admit that it isn't all light and sunshine, that there is something going on. And the magical element after sort of making peace for your past with Maximus is asking, how can you feed others when your own cup is empty? So you may have often been the person who was the one that everybody else went to because you seemed like you had it all together. You just enjoyed love and life, and everything was light and easy for you. So you might be used to people coming to you for help, but you need help now because there's something that is coming to the surface, and your nature is actually deeper than you are showing other people that it is. So it's necessary to look at how to bring that energy out. And I do think for most of you, because of the flirt as being the archetype here, it's around relationship and around love. But if that doesn't resonate, it might be around something else, somewhere where you have had to keep secrets, had to sort of keep confidentiality, and it's maybe getting a bit much. You've had sort of like one sort of face to the world and this. So, in a workplace maybe where you've, kind of heard all what was going on and it's becoming a bit much, and keeping that sort of light face on it is hard, and you may need sort of help around that. But there's something in your nature which draws people to you, but you need to sort out what this process is from the past for you, what the issues are. So I think most of you are uncomfortable with showing that you are vulnerable or that things matter to you. And that's, perfectly reasonable. Totally understand that. Let's have a look at some other energy. So we want to have a look at some archangel energy around the spiritual energy. If we're looking at your spiritual journey is about making peace with your past and finding the right people to help you. Archangel energy to help. There's creativity with Uriel and potential. Okay, all right. So for some of you, this isn't about a love relationship and it isn't about keeping secrets, but it's about a secret passion around creativity or something, like who you really want to be in the world. Again, it's like there's something, maybe there was a reversal, maybe you were blocked at some point, maybe even in childhood, but you really do want to be creative and we want to change things, shake things up with the Uranus energy, with Uriel there. And you know that you have a lot of potential to bring something into the world, but it's like you just don't want to show how much it matters to you, and you don't necessarily want to show that you need help. So it could be like, you've always wanted to write a novel, and you've got a lot of that within you, and you're very creative, but it's kind of like, you'd need to sort of get help around editing or whatever, and it matters so much to you, you don't want to show it to other people. So I think Uriel here is to say, one of the reasons to clear out the past is to let your creativity open up. And one of the reasons to go and ask for help is because it brings in the potential that you need. It actually helps you become this, that it's not a weakness. And stating to the world, even if it's just a very small group of people, not the whole world, but stating to those that matter or those that could help you that this does matter to you. It's not just sort of something that you're kind of like, oh, it's just a side hobby or something. Or, I'm looking for love and I actually really want the one, not just to have fun. Like whatever this is, it's the potential, the creative potential happens when you clear this out and you ask for help. So let's have a look at some astrology energy around the overall pattern for you around your 12th house. Last quarter, void of course, okay. Virgo, Venus. Yeah, a lot of you it's about love, definitely with Venus there. Venus or creativity, what is beautiful. It might even be like your own beauty. You've sort of suppressed it and tried to sort of like fit in with something, and you now want the sort of help to be more authentic to who you are, to be truer to your nature, to be able to fly like Pegasus. But there's something around love, beauty, creativity and so forth. Last quarter suggests that you do need to let something go again. So there is definitely something for pile one around letting go energies that have kind of got a bit stuck and a bit moldy really, so that you can go into something that has more potential. And you felt a bit lost. Something around secrets, around something that didn't work out made you feel a bit lost. It's sort of like, oh, if this ends, what do I have? What is there? This is why you kind of like to come across as everything's light, but you're not. Underneath, you're very, very deep. But planning, Virgo, health, healing, getting support, getting the pieces in place, all of that will help you and take you to what you want. So it's like the energy here is that you need to sort of say, yep, I commit to something. I commit to a relationship. I commit to healing my shadow. I commit to a creative project. I'm not going to make out that this doesn't matter to me anymore. And I'm not going to make out that only I can do it. I'm going to find the help that I need. I'm going to plan around this. I'm going to bring in what I love. I'm going to commit to that. I just feel like many of you, maybe there was something, a relationship, a creative project, whatever it was that you really did care about. And for some reason, it didn't sort of work out. Maybe there were secrets. Maybe there was competition. And that has kind of made you just not want to show that you care anymore, but you really do. You really do. And I think the journey for you at the moment around the 12th house is finding that way to reach out to the right people. So let's have a look with tarot. So we wanted to look at 3 different things around tarot. I want to have a look at your psychic and spiritual power, because we definitely have something around the sort of like the creation of sort of new energy and potential and clearing out the old to really bring in maximum sort of energy around you. We want to then have a look at your deep private psychological side of things from the 12th house, and then we'll have a look at what you can create when you put those 2 things together. So firstly, let's have a look at your spiritual energy. Okay, so your spiritual beliefs come from very much back in your childhood. They're very much impacted by something that happened in your childhood. So if you have kind of made light of that and suppressed it, it might be because it wasn't accepted in your childhood, or because you were highly empathic and you picked up what was going on around you and felt like you had to take on all the energy. So this could very much be for people who were the sort of the truth seers and truth speakers in a family, or even ones that had to take on emotional responsibility above their years right from the beginning, and in your psychic ability made you able to do that. You had a different perspective. You've always had a different perspective. This might be why you sort of feel you have to keep some of it secret, because it might be that sometimes it just wasn't accepted. You might have come from a very conventional spiritual home and you were a psychic empath or something, and you could read people's minds, and it was very disturbing. There's something very different about you spiritually and your psychic abilities, and you've had it since childhood, but you're not, it actually makes you feel a little bit unstable, like you don't know really what to do with it. You haven't got a direction with it yet. And I think that there maybe was a nurturing or authority figure around you that really wanted to sort of suppress that told you keep it secret, that told you don't talk about it, that told you that wasn't realistic. So I think this is one of the reasons why you suppress these things. When things really come through psychically or empathically to you, your first default is, oh my God, that's going to be so out of sort of, it's not real. It can't be real. I'm not going to accept it. I'm just going to suppress it. When in actual fact, it's very, very on point. It's also your psychic and spiritual abilities are connected to relationships in general. So that's why I sort of think very much the sort of empathy, telepathy, that kind of connection, and potentially to love. So one of the things that may occur with you, because you kind of suppress some of this sort of psychic energy, is that you may have gone into relationships and then found they weren't what you wanted, and then sort of had to move on quickly without really looking at what was going on. Why were you drawn into that? And maybe it was around the flirt energy that you were looking for the validation of people coming in and wanting to be with you, but you weren't really exploring what it is that you really want, because you can't be in an inauthentic relationship for long. You would see too much. So, but I think you suppress quite a bit of this. So let's have a look at the psychological energy. What comes out of somebody who is so telepathic and so empathic that you feel like you're carrying all the secrets of the world, to be honest. What does that mean, for you around your sort of depth psychology in the 12th house? So for a start, it means that you suppress what's coming through psychically. It's like there's a lot coming through. I think you may find it a little bit hard sometimes to know, is this my feeling or is it somebody else's? Like there's just so much that comes through that I think it's kind of like it's all gets sort of shoved into the corner with the mildew fairy here. Like that's, I can't deal with that. I can't look at that and so forth. There's a very strong connection around a mother figure, I think, with you. And they taught you this. Like this comes from, and it doesn't have to be literally your mother. It could even be your father if there was more a maternal energy from him, or it could be, sort of a teacher or something like that. But there's some figure who's very much kind of got you to just not want to look at this, like just don't, like, have fun, enjoy life, have abundance. Don't look into the shadow. And there could even be that, as a result, you've been drawn to sort of spiritual traditions, in the New Age, which is all about, be high vibrational without really working through what that means. You need the underpinning for that as well. But there just seems to be a kind of some sort of pushing energy on you, and maybe even that you feel responsible for others with the Empress as well. This is why you asking for help is such an unnatural thing for you to do. It does psychologically make you a fantastic friend, and you have a lot of people around you. That's what I'm saying. I think a lot of people probably come to you with their problems, but I think by always focusing on that and appearing like everything's light and fine for you, it helps you kind of avoid making decisions. You don't want to make these decisions. You kind of want the liberation, but you don't want to make the sort of material decisions that could be involved in it. So I think psychologically you tend to push your energy down, your sort of psychological needs, your desires, your psychic energy down, and focus always outward to others and what you can do to help them. And as I say, there's just at the moment you're getting to a point where for some reason, whether it's because a relationship's coming in or it's just getting a bit much, you are going to need to think about how to actually get help for yourself as well. So if you do that, let's just pull 3 cards for what could you create coming out of the shadow. If you did this shadow work and you started to sort of be prepared to commit to what you really want and ask for the help, what could you create? Okay, so there's something going on around you that's causing all of this. I've got to say that I think there's a lot of drama, and you deal with a lot of other people's drama, and there's a lot of philosophical sort of beliefs and rules and regulations and expectations put on you. What you can create coming out of this is recognizing that that's happening, that you're taking on a lot of drama from other people, you're taking on a lot of other people's energy, and there's only so far that you can do it. And also that it's mentally exhausting. You come out from behind the scenes with the Hermit. You can actually be more who you are. That's what it's basically saying. You've suppressed quite a bit of who you are and tried to make light of a situation that's having a huge mental toll on you. So I think that basically for you, Pile 1, the message of this is that you need to be judiciously vulnerable with the people that you can trust, and whether, as I say, that's professional people or whether it's close friends, but you've been kind of trained to put others first all the time, spiritually and also psychologically. It's time for you to say, there's only so much I can take. There's only so much sort of like that I can process the information, the energy and the drama around this. You need to come out and say that there is a depth underneath what appears to be this light-hearted person. I actually had a friend once who always said she was happy all the time, but to be honest, every once in a while it would crack. That's the sort of feeling around this. It's like you don't have to do that. People around you are not really requiring you to do that, or if they are, they're not the right people to be around. So I think that's the sort of energy around your 12th house. Let's have a look at how that operates a bit on the 3D by looking at just energy from your 12th house, how it impacts relationships and how it impacts your career. Then we're going to look a little bit more around the deeply spiritual side of the 12th house and your gifts, which I think are significant and which I think we've already seen would have things like telepathy and so forth. So relationship energies, yeah, you're safeguarding yourself all the time because you don't want to be criticised. You've been criticised. So it's easier for you to go, like everything's light, everything's fine. How can I focus on you? That way you safeguard your own privacy, you don't get criticised, but you also don't get the support you need and you don't get the love that you need. What impact does this have on your career or vocation? Prioritization, resilience. Yeah, because at the moment, there's both a solution in this and also the situation that you're in. At the moment, you prioritize everybody else first, I think, rather than yourself, and you pride yourself on your resilience. Other people don't see this, you don't need help. But by prioritizing yourself, you'll actually build your resilience. It's like, you work a muscle to build it. If you just kind of like don't and deny that you need the muscle, then it's not going to happen. So there's a sort of a message here around how you work and connect with others, that you need to make yourself a priority for a change, because you don't tend to do that normally. All right, so let's have a look at some spiritual gifts. Let's have So the 12th house is a lot about psychology, and we've talked a lot about your psychology, but this is the house of the spiritual. So I just want to use 3 different decks to see what kind of spiritual and magical abilities you have that you could call on to deal with the sort of other issues that the 12th house always brings for us. Life path 7, the dreamer, ruling planet Neptune. Yes, allow yourself to dream a bit. I feel like you're a little bit scared of dreams. Dreams might not come true. Dreams might be putting yourself first. I think you're meant to actually start to do that, to bring out that creative energy and to bring out your potential. We've also got ancestry line, older than Earth. Like, you're a very old soul, but it's also, this is kind of connecting this back to your family. You've probably picked up psychic things from your family. I just think that for many of you, it may not have been very acceptable, however. And clairsentience, clear feeling. So yeah, the empathic, the feeling, the energy with others. You're like a sponge, and that can be great, but you also need to be able to let some of that energy out, and you need to sort of have people picking up your feelings as well. Okay, let's look at divinatory energy around you. Coins, abundance. So you're probably very able to sort of roll with the punches. You're probably very able to bring in money, all of that kind of thing, to manifest. You have that kind of ability. Might also be why people think you don't need help, that you seem to have a light touch to things. So certainly that's worth continuing with. It's good to be able to be abundant. And I Ching change. But there are changes, I think this is saying. Like, you need to use your divinatory and psychic energy to be able to find the changes you need to just shift this energy, because, as I say, it just feels a bit stuck. And it shouldn't be. You have a lot of gifts. And then let's see what magic energy could help you. Because we've already seen earlier in it things like clearing out the past and allowing your cup to be filled is a magical thing. It's a magical thing of abundance and change. But what else? Banish. And then abundance. Okay, so yeah, there are some people and some issues around you that are taking up too much space, too much time, too much energy. But I feel like you just don't ever want to say that it's too much. You do need to, like, kind of almost psychologically or spiritually banish some of that energy, get some boundaries around it for you, and focus on what would bring in abundance. And if that means that you need to be a little bit more serious about some of what you do and ask for the right help, do it. But get rid of the energy that either is stopping you being able to use your spiritual abilities, telling you they're not realistic, telling you can't do it, because you'll almost, success is the best revenge there. You'll be able to prove anybody who is a naysayer like that wrong. But you do also need to banish those that only want you to be there for them and don't have that kind of reciprocal energy. Okay, so let's have a look at some pathway energy for you. So we're going to look at the Golden Path and the Lantern Oracle for just some other information from Spirit about what will help you have the right pathway, sort of going into and coming out of your 12th house energies. Bondage, yeah, you're tied up somehow at the moment. I think you're tied up with your own expectations of self and with not wanting to show certain things. So there's definitely, you need to look at where you've tied yourself up, where this need to appear to be much lighter than what's going on has tied you up. Lantern Path, transitions. You have all the inner resources you need to cross whatever bridges arise on your path. So you do have a lot of what you need here, but part of that is also being able to admit when there are kind of like answers, help, support that's necessary to really bring things in. So part of that is being strong enough to be vulnerable. Be strong enough to be vulnerable, because at the moment you don't want to be vulnerable. But it's not going to mean that you suddenly don't have a pathway and you don't have the resources. You do. You can be vulnerable. It's just more efficient, if nothing else. Okay. So we're going to look with some astrology energy about what energy will emerge from the depths as you start to sort of process this advice. What is going to come out astrologically for you? Capricorn, abundance. Yeah, you're meant to make money in the world. 11th house, and have better friendships that are a little bit more reciprocal. There are good people around you, I think. And the 12th house. So friendships that connect from that depth on the 12th house, and ones that actually help you, I think, heal this. So bringing in money, bringing in success in the world, but also bringing in the right sort of people that you can feel safe with, I think is what this is saying. So that's good. That's good energy. To finish off, I want to look at how to integrate this sort of stuff. So we're going to get a couple of affirmations from a crystal chakra deck, and then we will use the Astro Chakra cards. So crown chakra, there's your sort of psychic ability, connection to the divine, and crown chakra. So you're very, very spiritual. I just think that many of you maybe suppressed it or didn't know or it wasn't approved of. So we have two different gems or crystals in the crown chakra. The first is lepidolite, which is about dissipation and reorganization. So it's saying I reorganize parts of my life often. So don't let the mildew collect. Get the help when you need it, move on. It's just it's just efficiency. That's what I'm getting. It's like seeing it as efficiency might be a way that you see it as something that isn't as sort of daunting. And I demand that all negatives dissipate. Just let the negatives go. Recognize them, accept them, get help when you need it, let them go. With amethyst, we have intuition and enhancement. I realize that crystals can enhance my everyday life, so that might be sort of something to help balance when you're not feeling good. Look, think about things like amethyst in particular. And I learned to trust my intuition. So if you were taught not to trust it or to doubt it or to feel that it's not provable, start to trust it, because you are very, very psychic. Okay, last but not least, let's get some Astro Chakra cards to bring the energy of your 12th house together. Root chakra, solar plexus chakra, throat chakra. Okay, there's a bit of a story here. We start with getting to that what makes you feel safe. What would make you feel safe to actually come out of this everything's light and actually express what you want? And Venus is part of that love, the wish for love and feeling safe in love. So you need to find, it does need to be the right people. There's some instincts that you have that are dead on about there's certain people around you wouldn't want to share this with, to be honest, but there are certainly other people that could help you. And it helps you open up your love nature and admit that it's there rather than that everything's very light. This then also opens up passion for you with Mars, and it brings you into power, the power to really express and have that passion. And then to Mars again, communicate that passion and energy with your life direction. So for those that it's around creativity, it's about feeling safe in what you love and what you want to be in the world, and then being able to communicate it. And for those that this relates to things like friendships or love relationships or that kind of thing, it's about knowing who to feel safe with so that you can move forward sort of energetically about who you are and communicate that more, not hide it away so much. So I think that the real pathway around your 12th house is that you have huge hidden depths. You have a lot of sort of strength and resilience, but you kind of don't want to show it or the way that you show it is to seem like everything's light and easy, and you don't want to ask for help. But there's something, a love relationship, a career option, a creative option that will be accelerated, as I say, efficiently by finding the right people to connect to and really saying, I'm going to be right out and proud about this. This is who I am. This is what I want to be. This is how I want to love. This is what I want to create. So I hope that resonates for you, Pile 1. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. And if this is the first time that you've seen one of the You Through the Houses series, now that this one is published, they're all published and they're all in a playlist. So you can go back and look at any of the other houses and topics that might interest you. And if you've been with me through the whole series, thank you. It's really wonderful to have gone on this journey with you. Beyond all of that, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, Pile 2, to your reading. So I just move these down a bit so you see them a bit more clearly. So this is some of a kind of a map of your 12th house energies. We also have some other cards that we'll put down a little bit later that come from what was under the night card that brought you to this reading. But what I'm looking for here, particularly with Shadows and Light, Lay Vampire Oracle, an Archetype Oracle, Magic of You, and also Greek mythology, is a bit of a sense of the kind of dramatic, deep, psychological, and also spiritual sort of energy that you are manifesting with your 12th house. It's really interesting actually to see both the archetype of the Father and Zeus here. I think that you're a very powerful person. Your spiritual ability is very powerful, but you're just powerful per se. And you have a lot of sort of like internal sort of almost sort of like basic authority. People naturally come to you as an authority. You seem to have a huge amount of responsibility. A lot of what's sitting in your psychology and how you look at things is incredibly responsible. It's like you have a great weight on your shoulders. You may literally be a parent. It doesn't have to be, a father. It could just be a nurturing figure, or you could be a leader in organizations. If so, there's a sort of sense of you're the sort of power that isn't as necessarily as seen because it's in the 12th house. It's like the person who really does run an organization as opposed to the figurehead, for instance. There's that sort of energy and a huge amount of responsibility, as I say, and a huge amount of a sense of destiny. You have a sense of destiny and that you have a sense of responsibility and a pathway. Very, very psychically attuned, very much pick up sort of messages sort of empathically, but probably also I think channeling. I always get a sense with Iris with messages, the rainbow here of channeling from, the sort of the upper higher dimensions. And this has something to do with whatever is this sort of suspicion of destiny or actual destiny that you're already in terms of authority. So there is a sense that you have responsibility and you don't sort of like show it up. It's not, you don't have it to sort of like make out that you're better than other people or to do it for status. It's not about that. It's a very deep sense of responsibility in some way, or in many ways probably in your life. It's just probably part of your true depth psychology. And that's interesting. But what is also going on is that I think that it might have impacted love for you, because the cards around it here, like the magical cards, we've got Lavaria, which is about let love grow, sort of bringing in energy and letting that sort of occur, letting something that like that in, and oblivion, opening your arms. There's a sort of a sense here of almost having sacrificed love for responsibility in some way, like whether you saw that from childhood, like whether you felt that your parental figures put aside their love and their needs or whatever for responsibility or for work or something like that, or whether you've done that to some degree, that you sublimate some of your love energy and what you want to feel and so forth towards what your career is and to what your sense of responsibility is. Or even with some of you, I have to say, it could be that you are in a family, you have a parental responsibility, and something's happened, like a third party's come along and it's sort of really rocked you to the core because of the emotion around it. So there's sort of something around this, or you've been with someone for a long time and then someone else has come. There's something about love and about how that interacts with your sense of responsibility to others and your sense of sort of like what is spiritually right. And it may in fact be someone coming back, because we have the resurrection card here, reprise, recovery, come back. It could also be that you have put love aside and now there's an opportunity, that there is the chance to do that, and you're suddenly sort of realizing, oh, love isn't sort of something for other people. It could be something that I have. But there's something repetitive here, because we have the three witchy sisters. And that's around the power of three. It tends to say whatever we're talking about. So I think this is very time specific around the energies for your 12th house. It's something that if it's happened once, it'll happen 2 more times. If it's happened twice, it'll happen 1 more time. If this is the 3rd time it's happened, the cycle is over. I feel like it's probably 1 or 2, because with resurrection, it feels like something coming back. It may be, for some of you, it could be that you have a new opportunity with grown-up children that you had who maybe sort of went off into the world and they're coming back, and there's an opportunity to reconnect. It could be that there was a breakup that you had. Maybe it was even around power struggles or struggles about responsibility or what the right thing was to do, but it's coming back and you're able to look at it again. Or it's just, as I say, the sort of dawning of realization, literally like the dawn coming out there in the back of that card, that you could love, you could let love in. You don't have to see love as oblivion. You can open your arms to something, let that sort of energy come in. But there's definitely something cyclical. And this probably also says that you have patterns of responsibility, patterns of sort of authority. There are probably cycles where you tend to get more information, channeled to you, maybe the cycles of the moon or something like that. So you're familiar with the cycles of life. You're familiar with responsibility, but I feel as though you've somehow put aside love, or you felt that you had to sacrifice that to some extent. And at the moment, there's some energy around that. So let's see a little bit more. Let's have a look at some archangel energy around this, and also some astrology energy. So Michael with strength, Yeah, you're very strong. There's no doubt. And you kind of hide your strength. You're not showy about it, but boy, you're like Atlas holding the world on your shoulders. And Uriel, abundance, and very able to do very well around your work, around bringing in money, about dealing with change with Uranus there and so forth. Mercury with Michael, very good communicator, very good leader. Very good leader. You would definitely be one of those sort of people in a workplace or a political group or whatever, where, as I say, it's not showy, but people know they get the right information from you, that you are the responsible one, that you are the ethical one. Definitely. But maybe a little bit isolated or aloof for that reason, why we're getting the sort of love energy around this. Let's see astrologically. Neptune, Libra, masculine, yeah, very strong divine masculine. 11, okay, wow, all right. So, Neptune and 11, I'm going to go to that first. This is picking up the iris energy, very, very psychic, very much coming from here, the top of the crown chakra, but also Keter in the Kabbalah, direct sort of connections around that. It's part of why you are a leader, because you are very much connected to that divine energy, very strong. And 11 is that sort of very strong spiritual psychic ability. So it's definitely saying you have it, even though I think most of you, it's not seen that much. You use it, but it's sort of hidden a bit because it's in the 12th house. It's part of what makes you such a wonderful leader. And Neptune is also supporting that, this sort of sense of like the psychic, the numinous and so forth coming through. Libra and masculine is picking up your authority patterning. You are very, very fair. This is part of the reason why people do see you as this sort of almost father figure in a very broad sense. And the masculine energy, divine masculine, is very, very key here. What it is probably saying, given that what's surrounding it is some sort of pattern around love, is that you may have a tendency to feel more comfortable with the divine masculine side of you. And this is not about gender. It's about the energies that are embodied by the divine masculine, like ambition, leadership, drive, all that kind of thing, as opposed to the sort of receptive, open energy of love and so forth. But I think that spirit here is sort of saying you're all over that. That's fine. But don't forget this sort of psychic ability, because I think that's the ability that potentially helps you see the cycles around love and allows you to bring the hope for love back in. So that's very interesting. So let's have a look at what tarot can tell us. We're going to ask three things, but two things key. The first one is around your psychic and spiritual gifts, which, as I say, would be considerable for you. And then we're going to have a look at the impact of all of that and the 12th house on your sort of depth psychology, like some of the patterning that you may or may not be conscious of. Then we're going to see what could emerge if you really took the best out of those things and brought it a little bit out of the hidden area of the 12th house. So firstly, a little bit more information on pile 2's psychic and spiritual energies from the 12th house. Okay, so firstly, we already know that you have them very strongly, so that's not in question, but you do hold them under rather strict regulation with the Knight of Swords reversed. You're not sort of like, if you get, and I think you do, sort of downloads and sort of prophetic senses and all that kind of stuff, you're not off telling the world about it. You do keep most of it to yourself, and you try and work out, what does this pragmatically mean? You understand the cycles with the Wheel of Fortune. You understand that things will rise and fall. You take that information and you use it pragmatically. And you use it for the greater good, not for your own personal recognition. Like, you are a master at so many things, spiritually and so forth, and in terms of like leadership and stuff, but it's like you don't blow your own horn. Like, I do think that most of you will be in leadership positions at some point, but if you aren't already, but I don't think, it's just not showy. You're not sort of like the showy sort of person around that. You are much more about, how do we really manage this? How do we have the proper stewardship? How do we deal with the cycles of life and so forth? And you have a very electric sort of energy coming in, but you ground it a great deal. And you use it around helping people who are emotionally a bit stuck to make decisions in some way. So it's like people would come to you for advice and you would give it, but you would give it without saying, oh, this has sort of come from the divine or whatever. You would give it in such a structured and sensible and psychologically rigorous way that they would just think, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I don't think that people are really aware of how much you get from spiritual sort of indications and so forth. I also think, though, that some of this spiritual ability may be robbing you a bit of your capacity to love. It's like you took on such a responsible viewpoint about this and you thought it can't be about me, it has to be about something bigger, that maybe with the Three of Cups, you're even denying sort of some of the love energy that comes from the divine. It's much more about what the messaging is. So let's see what that is doing around sort of the psychology of you, the hidden psychology in the 12th house. Okay, yeah. You're here for the world as far as you're concerned. And there's a lot that's wonderful about that because you have a hell of a lot to bring to the world. But I do think that some of it might be to compensate for feeling some emotional pain. I think that for many of you, you mightn't have come from the happiest home environment with the Ten of Cups reversed. Maybe you came from a broken home potentially. There's a doubt somewhere within you psychologically about how long relationships can last, how happy you can be in them, and even if you can trust them with the Seven of Swords reversed. So there's something, there's an ex coming back, or there's some sort of pattern around relationships, and there is the opportunity to break through this, but you do need to understand that the disappointment and hurt you felt has kind of translated itself into a kind of more, I'm here for the big picture sort of energy around your 12th house. You might have Aquarius in the 12th house potentially, which is very transpersonal. That's possible. If not, like some of the sort of leadership types of signs like Aries or whatever. But I just feel like psychologically you were hurt, and you really want to focus on like the material things, unsticking the material because you feel you can master that, and you're here for the world. So that the psychological energy around this for you is a denial of the heart to some degree, and feeling like you have to be here for others. But I do think that Spirit is saying that there is an opportunity or options to bring love back in. So let's ask for 3 cards about what could occur if you really started to let that in. Okay, that's very powerful. Like, firstly, your spiritual energy, it's off the charts already, but if you actually like let it bring in the right love and allowed yourself to love and all that, you are really off the charts with that. And you're actually bringing in, I feel what this is saying, the magician is the master of all the elements. I think what this is saying by letting the moon in, it's letting the water element back in. It's almost like you've kind of put the water element to the side. And you've gone, it's all about the material, it's all about the intellectual, it's all about, like leadership, but I put the water element to the side. But by bringing the water element out with the moon and the psychic ability and so forth, you become really the magician. You become truly what you could be. It may be a little bit unsettling at first with the Chariot reversed. You may sort of feel, oh my God, it might be such a rush. I think for some of you, there's a major love coming in and it's going to knock your socks off, and that's going to be a bit of a rush, and it's going to almost force you to look at this. So it may feel a little bit unsettling at first, but go with it because you're meant to be this really powerful entity, and you are very much the true authentic leader. So it's getting everything in the right place for you. It's not sort of almost limiting yourself by just taking one of the elements out of it. It's getting it more in balance. Okay, so let's see how that looks like in kind of 3D areas like relationships and career, like the energy of your 12th house and what it could be with its potential. Lust, yeah, okay. I think something's coming in, or it might have just come in. There's a relationship around, or it brings you back a lust for life and a lust for all those sorts of things. And consequences. You have a very good understanding of the consequences. I think that coming up is just showing you have too much responsibility for that to be too much of an issue. So you could allow yourself to go towards something that would be pleasurable for you, that would be loving for you, because you always have enough strict regulation around what you do to be able to manage the consequences. Let's have a look at what energy there is around career. Disapproval. Promotion. Okay. So that's interesting. I think that you may feel, if you were more fully all of you might get disapproval. You may feel like, people will sort of see that sort of side of you. That's not the sort of go-getter. It's not the sort of like the thinker. It's also somebody who has feelings. Maybe that wouldn't be approved of. But in actual fact, it's likely to make you more powerful. So it's like understanding that some of this hiding away from the love is you think you're going to your strengths. The reality is you do have all those strengths. That's not untrue. But you could be even stronger if you kind of let the spiritual and the emotional become more overtly part of who you are, and you allow the right relationships in. Okay, so let's have a look at spiritual gifts, because as I say, you guys are pretty much off the charts, I'd say. So let's just see with 3 different decks the kind of spiritual energy that characterizes your 12th house. Demonologist, wow. Now that, I don't think that means, when I get that card I always feel like saying, I don't think that means that you have to be an exorcist, and I don't think it means that you're going to have demons around, but I think it does show that you have the strength to go into the shadow of the 12th house and deal with it and be that sort of strong Zeus-like light energy in there. So that I think is just doubling down on the amount of strength that you have to recognize and banish negative energy. And then we have Life Path 3, the communicator, ruling planet Jupiter. So that's bringing in abundance, being able to communicate. This is partly why you go towards the philosophical and being able to communicate. But I think there's a lot in your 12th house, which, because it's naturally the private house, thinking about what from that you could communicate that would actually enrich that life path and what your message is. And then we have empath. Extremely sensitive, yes, so empathic. You pick up the energies of other people and so forth. And it's part of the reason why you're a great leader, because you really do read the room, you really do know what people are feeling. You have a genuine caring for people and responsibility for people. Okay, let's see what divination energy could be operating around you. Augur, mastery, yeah, see, you're meant to be the magician, and you're so close to it already. It's just what are you hiding to some degree? And you definitely can sort of see the trends of what's happening. This is, again, this sort of cyclic sort of energy. You see the patterns in things. You see what's coming through, like a prophet would do. And aura, observation. Yeah, very keen eye. You do watch things. You're careful and so forth. So, and you may well be able to read auras with people. It might be part of your empathy. Let's also look at magic energy as well. Sacred space. Release. Okay. So I think what Spirit is saying here is, with that sort of magical ability that you have, you can create a sacred space for yourself around spiritual areas. And that probably is the 12th house, and a lot of it probably will remain private. But you can release that which isn't working to allow that other energy to come in, so that you can have love as well. You can become the magician, not just sort of someone who's a great leader with some sort of hidden but nevertheless sort of quite special spiritual abilities and understandings. Okay, so let's have a look at some pathway things. We've got the Golden Path Oracle and also the Lantern Path for some advice about lighting your way in your pathway of the almost underworld energy of the 12th house. Emotions. Yeah, emotions. They will be part of your pathway. You don't have to suppress those. You really don't. And then the Lantern Path, or the Lantern Oracle. Spirit self. Be who you are as you are. So yeah, you're very spiritually attuned, as we say, being authentic to yourself, and you're not going to lose that leadership and so forth. It's innate to you. It's part of your nature. It's just a matter of being all that you are. And you don't have to shout it from the rooftops. Nothing from the 12th house, even if you share it with the closest people to you, so you bring love in. That's all you need to do. You don't need to show it to the total universe or anything. But being who you are and allowing that brings you more into your power. Okay, so let's see with an astrology deck what energy will emerge from your sojourn in the depths here, thinking about your 12th house energies. Fire. So your ambition and drive. North Node, your life path. You're meant to be the magician. And waning gibbous, calm after the storm. Yeah, I think you'd think, whether it's letting love in or whether it's sort of showing more of yourself to key people or whatever it is, that there's going to be this storm. But I actually think, in actual fact, if there is, it's fairly short term, because this is what you're meant to be doing. And that fiery leadership energy that you have, it takes all before it. Like, people are probably a bit in awe of you. You may not know it, but I think that they are. So let's integrate it. Let's get some chakra energy for you, both from crystal chakra with some affirmations and then also with the astro chakra deck to close out the reading. So sacral chakra, creativity, and third eye chakra, all that sort of psychic ability and psychic connections. So the sacral chakra here has carnelian, which is about success and self-confidence, and you should always feel that you're going to have that. It's basic to you. The affirmations are, I am confident in the decisions I make and I attract success into my life. This is part of the reason why you're a good leader. You can make decisions. You make decisions quickly, you're sure of them, you have a very strong ethical basis to it. You can just move with the energy, this fire energy, very, very well. The third eye chakra, blue chalcedony, self-perception and lightheartedness. I sometimes allow myself to be carefree. Yeah, you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders all the time. And I change my perspective to increase my understanding. And this is letting more and more of that psychic energy in and understanding that it's part of who you are, particularly as a leader. Okay, let's close out with just some Astro Chakra cards to bring it all together for you, pile 2. Not surprised to see the crown chakra with you, the throat chakra, and not surprised to see the third eye. See, you are very much the magician. You are a little bit of an anachronism in a way, in as much as I think you're probably more in the world like a leader, someone very much in business, pragmatic in career, but you're in fact a mystic and the magician, really. Spirituality here, the crown chakra, that's part of where you get your ethics from. Saturn, discipline is there, spiritual growth. You are you are serious about your spiritual growth. And you're also, I think, serious about having the responsibility to support other people's spiritual growth as well. Communication with the sun, there's something about what you will take as a message to the world, which is also picking up the life path about the communicator. So there's something that you are meant to communicate as part of your life path with the sun there, and it's your authenticity, it's being who you are, and then using your intuition with the telepathic energy of the third eye chakra. Again, you kind of can bring things into discipline. Like, this is why you're an innate leader. People just energetically follow you. They just energetically think that you're right and that you're fair and all those sort of things. And that's all true. But it doesn't mean that you have to be ascetic and separated out. You can have love as well, and you can have emotions as well. And as I say, when you let that occur, even if it's only in the most private relationships, you become the magician, not just the leader, but the magician. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 2. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. If you've been with me through the whole series, thank you. I hope it's been interesting for you. If this is the first time that you've come across it, we've now published every single one of the 12. So all 12 houses will now be in a playlist. So you can go and look at other houses if you want. But either way, I do hope that I see you in future pick a card readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So these are some of the cards that were under the Knight card that brought you to this reading. They represent shadows and light, vampire, oracle, archetype, magical sort of energy, and also mythological energy. We're also going to look at some other aspects of your 12th house as an overall map before we look at the tarot. The first thing that I would say about your particular energy here is that you are a highly attractive person. You draw people to you, and that is great, and it's partly because you're incredibly creative, incredibly talented in one form or another on creative or innovative, so it could be creative in terms of the arts, but it could also be sort of like an inventor or a great strategist or something. You draw a lot of people to you because of that, but they also want to control you. So you have an interesting sort of push-pull energy in your 12th house, because and there are ways that they can potentially get under your skin, and there are ways that you can push them away. It's just interesting. I just think that you're very attractive. You draw this in, and everybody wants to kind of have a piece of you, or like manage you or something. Like if you were a creative artist, this is like you draw the sort of managers who want to tell you every step of your career. and you want to be the innovator. So the very thing that's drawn people to you, that draws them on that deep psychological level, is also the thing that they then want to control or subdue. So there's a weird thing, there's the Aries energy here of warmongering. With the faceless ghost and the haunted girl, this is where someone is having everybody else's opinion, people who think they need to help you, they have a better idea, they can manage you, they can do whatever it is, whether it's sort of family, friends, workmates, as I say, business managers, whatever it is, everybody's got an opinion, and they're drawn to you because you're an innovator. They're drawn to you because here with Orpheus, enormous sort of, like I say, creative, beautiful sort of energy that is very inspiring. And you are very mystical and very creative with Arenda here, with honouring your mystical and creative force. There's sort of knowledge and you know, particularly say with the serpent here in this particular image, there's that sense of the knowledge and sometimes the cost of knowledge, like what that means to be the innovator, you know, what that draws into your life. You want to create something that's lasting. With that death will come. You want a legacy. You don't want to feel everything that is in your 12th house and is creative to you in the 12th house and at a depth level really matters to you. And it's really a driving force for you. And you will go to war for it if you have to, but you know that you need to protect yourself. So it's sort of like, on one hand, you hold a lot of that to yourself in the 12th house and it's hidden until you're ready to move forward. But what that does do is it brings everybody who thinks that they can have a better idea or control you. And if they can get into your head about this is the only way to make something last, they could potentially influence you more than you should be. You need to have faith. You know, like Orpheus here talks about music, and many of you may be musical. But the story of Orpheus is a story of faith and a loss of faith at the crucial moment, because Orpheus's wife Eurydice is stolen into the underworld. And when he goes into the underworld to save her, he is told that he can play his music and lead her out. But if he looks back to check if she's coming, then he'll lose her forever. And at the last moment, he loses faith, he looks back and he loses her forever. So it's a tragic sort of concept of it, you know, even given all the beautiful sort of gifts and the opportunities of losing faith at the 12th hour. So there's an internal war in you about, you know, that you have this creative ability, you know that you've got something very special, but you also know you need to protect it. And then you're sort of questioning, do I protect it by only going my own path, or do I protect it by listening to these people? So I think there's sort of like who you talk to, who you listen to, and is what they're doing ultimately liberating you and making you have more faith in yourself, or is it controlling you and telling you that you need them? Because if it's the latter, then you need to sort of put up the protective boundaries, because there's a manipulative energy. But it's drawn to you because of, they can see you. You're the goose that laid the golden egg, basically. That's why they're wanting to be around you. So let's see some archangel energy around you and some astrological energy in your 12th house. So we've got Zadkiel, forgiveness. That's interesting. And Gabriel, wisdom. So if you understand this dynamic with Gabriel here, with the moon and the emotional manipulation that might be behind some of it, you will have the wisdom not to get drawn into what they do. But you need to see that dynamic. You need to know that there is a way of discerning which people are genuinely there to build you up and which they are there to exploit and control you. If you can use the wisdom of Gabriel and the emotional acuity to see that energy, and some of your creative force actually to see that energy, then you get the wisdom. But you may need to forgive certain people. Because you're so attractive to people, some people might not even be able to help it. They just want to be part of the show. I mean, it's like sort of someone who is a musician and they're very sort of famous and they have all these hangers on, like an entourage. Like some of it might be like an entourage. And you might have to forgive them because they all want they're getting something by association with you, but it's not necessarily always manipulative in the I want something out of this sort of thing. It's more that they're needy. So some you may need to forgive, and knowing when to forgive and knowing when to listen and knowing when to detach and be yourself is the getting of wisdom, I think. Let's have a look at the astrological energy. Trine, square, Taurus. And a lot of you, there is something about music with a lot of you. 10th house. And this is playing out in career. a career that is about things that could be Taurian, so that's sort of anything sort of earthy, but also musical, the good life, all that kind of stuff I always say about Taurus. And you do need to be a bit stubborn sometimes. This is going to be necessary because, as I say, you're just going to draw a lot of people to you and a lot of opinions to you. Mainly it will play out in the 10th house. It's not going to play out as much in your love life, which is probably a good thing because this is a complicated energy to deal with. So I'd say a lot of your love life energy is much more in, say, other houses than the 12th house. And the 10th house energy around this, around career, is where you really, really kind of get in touch with some of these elements of your 12th house. Some relationships are going to be great, some connections are going to be great, some's going to be easy, some's going to be more challenging. It's getting those two things balanced, the sort of forgiveness energy and the wisdom energy. Squares are good though, because squares bring action and decision. If you have too many trines in your chart, life can be too easy, and so you don't actually ever grow and expand. And you are wanting to expand and innovate. So it's good that the ease of connection is connected to energy as well. You are very energetic, actually, and very innovative and very inspired in your 12th house. I think a lot might come to you in dreams. And if you aren't a musician, listening to music may be inspiring. There's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of energy and a lot of like work that's almost incubated in your 12th house at the depths before you bring it out and show it to the world. And people sense that. That's why they're drawn to you. Okay, let's have a look with tarot. So what we want to do with tarot is we want to firstly look at your spiritual and psychic energy, because what we're seeing largely there is more around sort of creativity and so forth, and being the innovator and that kind of thing, and the sort of psychology around it. So we're going to look at the spiritual energy. And we're also going to then look at a little bit more about what that means to you in terms of depth psychology and what you can have when you kind of take the messages from spirit to heart around this. So firstly, around your spiritual energy, what can we see for pile 3 about their spiritual abilities and gifts and energy in the 12th house? Okay, so the fact that they've all come out reversed, this is not, you don't focus as much on the spiritual, at least from the 12th house perspective. It could actually mean that your spiritual energy shows up more in your 8th house. So it would have been interesting to see if you've seen the episode in this series that's about the 8th house. So it may be more around sort of occult spiritual practice and so forth. Or it may be that it generates in some other sort of aspect of your life, but it's not, or it could be that it's not hidden, oddly enough. But it's not a focus, I think, of your 12th house per se. It doesn't mean you don't have the gifts, and we will have a look at that in more detail later. But what I will say is that maybe the reason it's not what you focus on here, apart from the enormous sort of creative energy that comes through, is that I feel as though it's like, actually, I'm getting this, it's actually quite strong. I think what it is that just as you draw all these people to you because of your creativity, I think one of the issues you might have to deal with spiritually is that you get bombarded. Like you're someone, you probably have many of the clear senses. You probably get bombarded with information all the time spiritually, sort of telepathically and all of those sorts of ways. And one of the reasons that you don't almost allow it into the 12th house is it could suppress the creative energy. It's like, what's mine? What's my innovation? What's my creativity? What's my vision? And what is everything else that I'm picking up, like almost being a cosmic garbage truck out there and just picking up every random thing from the collective unconscious that's going on. So I think that you actually control this energy and you don't let it get too deep into you, because there's a sort of a sense that it would get in the way of what you were trying to build and your vision and so forth. It's the same energy you feel in some senses assailed spiritually. And you may even be more aware of being assailed spiritually, that like everybody's spiritual beliefs, everybody's spiritual energy, all of that kind of comes. You may need a lot of time out, a lot of time alone, because you just pick up too much. So I think that it's saying, and it gets in the way of your vision, it gets in the way of your creativity, all of that sort of energy. It doesn't mean that you don't use it, but I do think that it means you need to be aware that that's going on. Just like you need to be aware that around your creative energy and what you are gestating in the 12th house, in a sense, people are picking it up and seeing it already and wanting to influence it. It's the same thing. You're like a magnet. Very, very interesting energy. Some people are like mirrors and sort of send energy out. You are drawing in so much that it might be important to think about spiritual practice that gives yourself some boundaries, because I think that unconsciously and psychologically you're repressing it because you feel overwhelmed by it. So let's have a look at what we have when we look at the depth psychology and how that is being impacted by your 12th house. This one came out, so I'll put it out. So did this one. I don't normally get cards jumping out, so that's interesting. I think it's a bit like your energy, sort of things, sort of like magnets. Picking up some of the energy myself here. Then we also have this, 8 of Wands, Ace of Coins, 3 of Swords. Okay. So your depth psychology is that's the Aries sort of warmongering, that kind of sort of energy around it that we had just under here. You do feel a bit assailed sometimes, and you do feel worried, like there's a lot of energy. You need lots of time out, definitely. Find things very mentally exhausting when you sort of have to go in and kind of look at this sort of stuff. And there are certain sort of pains you find hard to let go of, because I think you see them as part of the creative process. With Orpheus there, that there's sort of tragic underpinning of that. Doesn't mean that you're going to be tragic, but it does say that for you creatively, the sense of sort of like difficult emotions, difficult feelings is actually part of what helps you create, but you are sort of at odds with it as well. But you find through your creativity and through that sort of way of filtering the energy, rather than spiritually, but more around understanding it and processing it sort of on a sort of intellectual level, you find a great deal of liberation, and you create the new out of it with the Ace of Coins and bring in sort of money, resources, all that sort of stuff. So you are someone who, the reason that you're so innovative, the reason that you are so creative in whatever way this is that you take difficult psychological scenarios and you turn them into something creative and something that you know potentially does have a legacy. It's like you if you were a writer, you would write, you know, a tragedy, or you would write a deep psychological novel that really excavated the feelings from a kind of almost a detached, looking at it, just sort of fly on the wall type of feeling around it, stream of consciousness type of writing, that sort of thing. So your psychology is happy to look at that and excavate it and create out of it, but you like it to be your process. You don't want a lot of other energy coming in, and people can see you doing this. They can see the genius of it. So that's why lots of other energy does come in. So you almost create the preconditions for this nervous and intellectual tension that creates. So you might even sometimes put yourself into these positions around groups of people and so forth, just to almost be flooded with both the spiritual and also the psychological energy of others, because out of it something comes, but it can take its toll a bit. So let's see what you could create if you really understand this dynamic a bit better. And I think allow a little bit more in, even if you have some boundaries around it, from what you're getting, like a sort of a radio signal from the universe with your spiritual gifts. Okay. There's something, and this is why they could get to you around, you know, life is short, you know, what's your legacy going to be? There's something I think that you may have tried to create or bring in that didn't fully form. And this is one of the reasons why you kind of like get pushed and pulled, because it's sort of like you're trying to excavate and work out, was that because of me and something, a flaw in what I did or thought about it, or was it because I didn't listen to the right people? Like, you know, where does that sit? But understanding what's going on, understanding this dynamic, where, as I say, you're kind of picking up so much energy that you need to work out those boundaries spiritually and also understand your own dynamic, can create something that will last. It is within your power to do it. You don't have to listen to people who are telling you this is the only way to have a success. You really have it all within yourself, and that gives you that direction. But you do need to understand this internal kind of push-pull that you've got around being the innovator, the creator, which is drawing the people, and then second-guessing yourself and not having faith at the 12th hour and letting other people influence you. So it's that kind of dynamic we're looking at. So let's see what kind of energies this is showing sort of in the 3D around relationships and around career. How is the 12th house affecting that? time apart. You need time apart from people. You are someone who definitely needs to be able to go into your own little cave sometimes. And expectations, yeah, and don't get so drowned out by the expectations of others. Make sure that your expectations, the ones that you find in the time apart, not what everybody else thinks that you should do. Let's see around career. Procrastination, self-worth. Okay, so maybe what happens with this energy when you get confused and you're not sure what you should be picking up and whether you should be listening to others or whether it actually makes you stop making decisions. This is what maybe made this thing not come to fruition. Focusing on your self-worth and being able to back yourself, take the time apart and make them your expectations, then you are much more likely to get to this point where you really do design the thing, because you truly are the innovator. You truly are the creative one. It's like in whatever form it is. It's not all these other people who are in your ear. Okay, so let's have a look at your spiritual gifts, because it does look like you suppress them a bit. I absolutely believe that you have significant sort of telepathic abilities. You're picking up a lot. But what else? What else is there in your spiritual kit bag that's worth thinking about in your time apart, so that you actually have the right boundaries, but you fully integrate what that information is giving you, and you learn to assess it and quality control it. So clear alliance, clear smelling. So you may well be one of those people who, smells roses when, someone who's passed on who used to wear that perfume, that kind of thing. And you may find that smells evoke memories and feelings. Pay attention to that. That might be sort of telling you something. Life Path 9, the Peacemaker, ruling planet Mars. This is why the warmongering is there. It could be showing that what happens, and one of the reasons why you suppress this psychic energy, is that you get in all these sort of competitive environments and you're assailed with having to be the peacemaker all the time, and you just can't take in all the arguments. You've got to kind of find the way through the solution and so forth. So thinking again about that, what will give you peace as well, not just peace for everybody else. And yoga instructor, body and mind. So maybe either you could potentially do yoga, be a yoga instructor if you wanted, but maybe just doing yoga or some sort of practice like that to get you more integrated between what you're getting spiritually and to feel that and understand it, because you are kind of there's something very kinesthetic about you, so that you can integrate it, I think, is what Spirit's saying there. Let's look at divination energy that could be helpful or could be typical of your 12th house energies. Handwriting, authenticity, okay. And crystal ball, clarity. Well, there's the sort of like the psychic, precognitive, telepathic sort of thing. So you definitely are picking up a lot. And it's partly probably why you're innovative, because you're probably picking up that what's coming in and what's new and so forth. Using something like that to help you get that clarity. Again, using some of your spiritual gifts rather than being sort of like overwhelmed by them would be helpful. You may find automatic writing works for you with handwriting and so forth. That there is a sort of sense there about that could allow some of that energy to come through, dissipate, and then you can kind of work out what is something that you want to pay attention to and what is just rubbish, what isn't useful to take on board. Because with automatic writing, you tend to sort of get some stuff that's just gibberish and then some stuff that is absolutely spot on. So it could be a way to process some of that and kind of looking into how you see the future. All right, let's look at magical energy for you. Mediumship. Wow. Okay. Yeah. With the clear alliance, I wouldn't be surprised. And glamour magic. Okay. This is helpful. So mediumship is definitely, you can pick up things from the other worlds, from those that have passed on. It might be part of why you have that sort of sense of time is short. What do you achieve? What's your legacy? Definitely you have those kind of abilities. And that might be partly what's on the radio frequency for you. It might be sort of people who have passed on. So it could be useful to look into mediumship and see whether there are some techniques to help you there. But the other thing that may help you, glamour magic, is about appearing how you need to appear. But what it is also about, when necessary, is being invisible. And I think sometimes, because everybody wants a piece of you and everybody wants to tell you what you should be doing, sometimes you need to find that way to be invisible and to just be able to observe and get the clarity around things without everybody wanting a piece of you, as I said. So I think glamour magic on that level, how can you make yourself kind of invisible so that, and an artist needs that. I I can't even remember who it was, but there was some artist that I followed. It might have actually been a writer. Might have been a writer actually. And they were saying that once they became really well known, it was really hard because they used to like to go and sit in cafes and things like that and just observe and watch life. And it was really hard once they were known. So I think there's sort of like a bit of an energy like that for you, that you need to work out how to be able to make yourself invisible so that you can get back to that kind of pure energy and work out, again, what's you and what's other people. All right, so to maybe help with that, let's use a couple of oracles that show sort of light on pathways. So one is the golden path and the other is the lantern oracle. So Spirit's advice about how to light your pathway going through the underworld of the 12th house. Change. So yeah, there's something that needs to change, and I think it's incorporating more of your psychic ability and understanding it better, not being as sort of suppressing of it. And the lantern oracle for the light for you. Repair. Making amends rather than fun times reveals a relationship's true constitution. There may be certain relationships which you've walked away from because it was just too overwhelming that you could repair. In other cases, it may be that you are too much into repairing everything for everybody else and you need to sort of put your needs first. So that's a sort of interesting card. I think it's just asking a question. Where can you sort of reconstitute, make amends, connect with people if you've distanced yourself? Because it's reasonable if you have with all this sort of energy, but there might be some good people that you kind of lost along the way, a bit like Orpheus losing faith and losing Eurydice. On the other hand, it's like, are you doing too much to always make everybody else happy, I think is the question to ask. Okay, to finalise out, we're going to look at some astrology energy around your 12th house right now, having sort of gone through the journey into the underworld to look at it. What could arise from your 12th house now? And then we're going to use some chakra energy, a couple of decks with chakra energy to give you some advice to finish off the reading. So firstly, astrological energy. Virgo, third house, Uranus. Okay, change. There's definitely a need for change. There's also showing you understand the genius. There is a spark of genius around you. It's an electric energy. So be aware of that and use that and communicate what you want out of that and your vision out of it and plan. Do some planning. Don't let everybody else sort of like get into the details. You should get into the details around this as well too. It'll give you much more sense of boundaries and controls as that kind of genius energy comes through, and you'll be clearer in how you can communicate. Okay, so to help you with that, we're going to get a couple of crystal chakra cards and then we'll finish off with the astro chakra cards. So we have throat chakra, yeah, communication. And crown chakra, yeah, you're getting a lot sort of coming to you spiritually, definitely. So like learning how to communicate properly with that and have the boundaries around that, I think is really key to managing your 12th house. So in the throat chakra, we have turquoise, which is about purpose and clairvoyance. Clairvoyance, there you go, another of the clairs. I utilize my psychic gift of clairvoyance, so you definitely have that. And I align to my true life purpose. So you're not suppressing that, not feeling overwhelmed, learning how to deal with that and how to communicate what you get from that. It's very key. The crown chakra has clear quartz, which is about amplification and concentration. I concentrate on things that matter to me. So yeah, what matters to you, not to everybody else. And I amplify my voice and speak with confidence. So yeah, you speak with confidence. But it is about understanding and managing all this energy that's coming into you. I just think you find it overwhelming, or you have found it overwhelming. And as I say, you draw people to you like a magnet. So it's important to understand this. So lastly, let's get some astro chakra energy just to sort of close out the reading and synthesize it for you. The sacral chakra, the throat chakra, so communication again, and the heart chakra. Okay. So your creativity, your creative energy, it's all Uranian. It's very individual. It's very different and so forth. And it's about changing how you use that energy, how you create. So there is something in this. It's something about, I think, owning your own creativity and communicating it, and the transformation that you go through the process of creating. It revitalizes you once you feel you can speak out a bit more about your truth. And that may also resolve any issues around love, even though I don't feel like it's not talking a lot about love, except for maybe Orpheus. I think it's talking more about creativity. But there's also the wisdom that you bring to your creativity and the love that you bring to your creativity around Jupiter. And generosity is lovely, but I think it may be saying you do need to communicate who you truly are and what you're dealing with, because if you're too generous and too much repairing everybody else, then you become, the sort of spiritual equivalent of Grand Central Station, and it's overwhelming. So understanding how much you draw people to you and what you also draw energetically to you spiritually, I think will really help you, and it will free up the creativity that is being born really from the depths in the 12th house for you. So I hope that resonates, pile 3. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share about it in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, if you've been with me through the whole of this series, then thank you for doing that. If you haven't, if this is the first time you've seen this, then there are all the other houses in the playlist now, so you can go and look at readings for any other house energy that interests you. Beyond all of that, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 4, to your reading. So we have some cards here and some others that we'll get to fairly soon to look at the sort of map of the energies around your 12th house. What is that? It's very deep psychologically for you, spiritually for you, things that you keep private. And we're using different sort of oracles, Oracle of Shadow and Light and the Lay Vampire Oracle, to pick up sort of the kind of shadowy sort of like depth psychology energy, an archetype oracle to look at what this means sort of on a kind of almost Jungian level maybe. We've got magic sort of energy and also mythology energy to start with as well. So what I get when I laid these cards out was a kind of a sense of a shaman or someone who is deeply connected to their cultural background, their family roots, their ancestry, certainly with the ancestor connection here. May well be a medium or something like that, connecting with sort of, or, like in First Nations people here in Australia, the dream time, for instance, there's that kind of energy around this. And deeply psychic, I think, but also really aware of the impact of time and fate on things, and I think you feel a bit fatalistic. I think you feel like there are certain things you can control and there are certain things that are out of your control. And one of your struggles with your 12th house is having this feeling of the arc of history. This is what prophets have to some degree. The arc of history and the arc of a culture and all that sort of thing, and what is within your control and what can you do and where can you have free will, and then what is in fact part of the fates, and what are the challenges that you are meant to deal with, challenges personally, challenges for your culture. I think you feel very deeply connected to your culture in some way, and if it's not this culture that you're born into, you may feel it from a past life or something. There's a sense of social justice, there's a sense of cultural growth around all of this, but there's also a kind of a push-pull about what should you follow, how can you best use your gifts, and what is within your control around challenges, and what can't you deal with, and what information is coming that's right. With the Sea Beacon Fairy, this is a concept of you get guidance, but is it the right guidance? Is it guidance that helps you through the darkness, or is it like the sirens calling the sailors to their death on the rocks? It's sort of, you don't entirely trust some of either the spiritual or more pragmatic sort of guidance or advice that's around you. You may very much have a sense that you come from a culture that has been oppressed in some way, and I'd say your sense is right, and this is why you're not really sure who to trust. And I think sometimes you get with Epiphany great sort of spiritual downloads and so forth, but sometimes you think, is that true? Or am I just making that up? Is it all in my head? So there's an ambivalence about what's coming through spiritually for you, because you're not sure how much you are free will and how much you are trapped by the fates, and how to deal with challenges for that reason. So it's like you have this deep connection on that level, and a deep sort of spiritual sort of connection as well, but you sort of doubt it, and you vacillate between feeling psychologically that you can be the sort of captain of your own destiny, or in fact that you are being very much buffeted by the fates. So there's, as I say, a kind of a fatalistic side, but there's also a kind of, no, I have the gifts and I can do something, and I can see in my culture what we did, and look how far we've come. So there's a thing around power, a thing around free will, a thing around sovereignty, and around it's almost a war with the universe on some levels in your 12th house. So let's have a look at some archangel energy and also some other astrological energy that may nuance some of this. So we have Uriel, illumination. So I'm going to put this over with reveal your gifts because I feel it connects there. There is a change agent in you with Uranus and Uriel. You want to illuminate, you want to see the truth, but it needs to be the truth, not here. Uriel has a lantern and it's likely to be the true truth. Over here, this sea beacon fairy has a lantern, but it's not sure whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. And then we have Zakiel, miracle. So there's something that you want to heal. This is why I got the sense of shamanism around you, around your culture, around your life, around the degree of autonomy you have in your life for whatever reason. There's something you want to heal, I think, and you feel like you need a miracle for it because you do feel I think people who come to pile 4, if you come to the right reading, you've had more than your fair share of challenges around fate, destiny, the culture that you were brought up in, your circumstances in life. Like you really have been dealt a lot. And so there is a sort of side of you that's a bit cynical about what you can do, but equally you feel very connected and you understand almost a drumbeat underneath all of it that is leading to something bigger. So there's a side of you that does want to believe in miracles, but you don't want to be tricked. You want to be illuminated, but you don't want to be tricked. You want to have free will, but you recognize that there's fate. You want to connect with your ancestral line and so forth, but you're also aware of the challenges and you're just not sure whether what you're getting is right. So you're not necessarily going to articulate a lot of this to people. Let's have a look at the astrology. Chiron, healing. The shaman, definitely. 8, sense of great responsibility, hard work. You are very hardworking. You have a great sense of developing skills. You do have gifts. They aren't illusory. Waxing crescent, needing to kind of work out what is working, what isn't working, and letting go of what isn't working. But you tend to be a bit fixed. So again, there's a side of you that wants to sort of let go of what isn't working, move into the new, but you also feel connected to the past. It is very, very much like it's one part shaman and it's one part prophet, because prophets, as much as anything else, understand the past. And I think you've got a really good understanding of the past, but it just, for you, it makes you, and you want to heal a lot of that, and you're very good at that. But I think it does make you a bit cynical about the future. So it's sort of getting that balance right. So you want to be half cup full, but I think more often than not, you're half cup empty, because you really do understand the past. There's nothing sort of innocent about you. You know what the world's about. So, okay, let's use tarot and see what else we can get. So we're going to sort of firstly ask about what your spiritual gifts are doing for you in the 12th house. That little fly that's flying around. Okay, your spiritual gifts do help you make decisions. And with death, again, I think that feels like the shamanic sort of journey into the underworld. You're very at home in many ways in the 12th house. It's just that I think you're a bit cynical about your own gifts sometimes. But they do help you make decisions, and they do help you sort of have breakthroughs creatively and move forward and be a bit of a warrior for people. But you do doubt whether they're grounded enough. And there's a little bit with the Queen of Pentacles reverse that makes me feel with Chiron of that kind of position, heal thyself. It's like you may heal a lot of other people. You may have a natural healing energy, but you don't necessarily use it for yourself. You deplete your reserves a bit. And that literally does take energy out of you and makes you feel a little bit off center. So it's sort of weird. It's like you can make really good decisions because of your spiritual gifts and because of the information you get. And they probably work out, but then after it's almost like you think, well, how much was that under my control, and how much were other people sort of pushing the energy? It's sort of like you dissect it later and you're a bit of a perfectionist about it. You're not necessarily sort of just staying in this energy where you let it help you make decisions. You're always second guessing yourself, second guessing where the information's coming from too. Let's have a look at what impact that has around your sort of depth psychology in the 12th house. Yeah. You're a bit of a hostage to your mind, and I'm I'm probably someone who shouldn't talk because I tend to be like this. So I don't mean any kind of criticism, but you really do have, and your heart connection is via your 12th house spiritual gifts. You know, you connect to your ancestor line, you connect to your heart, all of that sort of stuff is definitely there. But you feel like that ties you up, and it takes away your free will. You feel like it's almost like what happens is that you go into this, you connect with your culture, you connect with your ancestry, you connect with what is going on more generally in a sort of zeitgeist, whatever it is, and you really see it. You really see it for what it is, and you start to really doubt that any of us actually have any choice at all. It's like you take it too far. You can see. I always think that you know, fate does exist, you know, but it's only fixed points for certain parts of life. The rest is very much free choice, and there's a lot of movement within it. But it's almost like you see that energy and you see the fixed points and you think therefore inevitably everything is fixed. So it's almost like philosophically you doubt the spiritual. You kind of like evidence, and it sort of, you feel if you get emotionally, like if you really sort of just believed in this emotionally because your heart is warmed by the sort of sense of the spiritual, that you were somehow getting off course intellectually, and you'd kind of talk yourself out of it because you don't want to be wrong. You don't want to believe in something that is very emotionally resonant but is not actually true, and so you're kind of pushing the dial a bit too far the other direction. You're sort of seeing it a little bit too much from a kind of scientific point of view, when in actual fact so much of what you do is sort of alchemy and shamanism and that kind of thing. But it's like, yeah, you look at the big issues, powerful. You really do. You look at psychic ability, you know, tarot reading, any of that, and you go, yeah, but does that mean that there's no free will? And if there is free will, then how can this work? Like, you really dissect it, and maybe to the point that you cause yourself some sort of emotional pain and so forth. So it's just worth thinking about that. So if you're aware of that dynamic, let's see with 3 other tarot cards, what could emerge by being aware of how your 12th house is operating. Okay. So I think it's a bit of a bargain. I think the Queen of Cups and the Queen of Swords would be negotiating, and neither of them are going to win. That's partly it. It's like the Queen of Swords does not win. It's not all about the mind. Equally, the heart is not going to. There's a compromise which allows something to be material and land, and you feel comfortable with it. But it takes quite a bit of work to do this, because you are very, very, not cynical, but you are very, very, your mind has to be satisfied. It has to be satisfied, and yet you're so psychic. So it's just a really interesting tension that you have to deal with. So let's see if we can help you with that. Let's have a look at some 3D energies. Let's look at how your 12th house is operating around relationship energy and career energy at the moment. Attraction. Decision. Okay. So I think you look at love and relationships in a similar way that you look at all of this, which is that you feel first, the energy, the emotion comes in, and then you go into your head to make the decision. So you're doing this in all parts of your life. And as I say, I would be the last one to be hypocritical and extreme to say don't listen to your mind, because I'm very mind oriented. But for you, it's like it's taking it a bit out of the realm of the heart. It makes it all about a philosophical decision, and is this free will? And like if you came across, you know, a soulmate or whatever, it'd be kind of like, well, did I get to choose this, or, you know, and what does this really mean? Like, that's the sort of energy around it. Let's see how it affects your career. Purpose. Gives you purpose, probably, yes. And productivity. Yeah, work's a treat in your work environment, because the things of the head and the things in the material and you know, like being a little bit cynical and planning and getting into the depths always works well for career, but not necessarily always as well for emotional sides of things. Okay, so let's have a look at what your spiritual gifts are, because you probably doubt them, but I think they're significant. But I think they sit in your 12th house because you just don't really trust them. But let's have a look. Let's have a look at what they are. Numerologist. Now, you may, because of the nature of your energy here, you may work very well with things like numerology, astrology, or whatever. Things that seem to have a structure and a system would work very well with the way that your mind engages with this sort of stuff. So it may be a bridge, a kind of, transactional point for you to be happier with dealing with that side of things. Master 33, the master teacher. So yeah, you're very, this shamanic sort of feeling around you. You are very spiritually skilled. It's just, again, teaching, using your mind. Maybe that is sort of saying that if you find particular things, numerology, astrology, tarot, whatever it might be, and you decide, shamanism, and you decide to teach it, and that makes you feel a little bit more intellectually in control of it, you may feel a little bit more comfortable with it that way as well. Oh, and we've got Twitter platforms. So you might be meant to get out there and talk about this stuff a bit more. I think when I see those things, it often means that kind of social media side of things connects you with people spiritually. But and then some of you may want to talk about things that are important to your ancestral line, your culture and so forth. But I feel for most, this is probably that kind of communicating about this a bit more around your spiritual gifts and spiritual beliefs would be helpful for you. Like, it might make you less cynical. You might actually find other people who really connect with you. And remember, this is in the 12th house. You might be listening to this and thinking, oh, I believe in my spirituality. But really, if beyond that this is resonating, like the shamanism and the connection to the past and, the feeling that there are challenges in fate, what does that mean? Think about what that means. Okay, let's look at divination, because I think divination might be something that is a bit of a tool for your busy mind to kind of feel a little bit more comfortable with what's coming through. Feathers, message, okay, and I Ching, change. So the I Ching is another very structured system, so that may be one that is helpful for you to use, full stop. It could also be just saying there needs to be a change, there needs to be a tweak. The Queen of Swords and Queen of Wands need to sit down and have a bit of a chat and broker an agreement, I think, in your 12th house. Feathers with message, pay attention to what's coming through psychically. Don't suppress it. Don't think, oh, I've just got to now, test it out for evidence. Like, just let some of that come through, because it is very good for you. The messages that come through are very good for you making decisions. Let's look at magic energy. Sorry, I don't know if you noticed, but I just halted that for a second because there was a sort of very loud truck outside, but it seems to be gone now. So magic energy for you. Rest, conjure, okay. So this feels like the shamanic sort of stuff. I think rest to me here, it probably does mean sometimes you just need to rest with all the energy that's coming through and rest your mind a bit. But I also think this feels like astral travel. This feels like, lucid dreaming. So pay attention to your dreams. There's like messages and so forth coming through that. And conjuring may be a way for you, if you are interested in kind of ritual, and again shamanic sort of stuff can touch on this, of conjuring in things. It kind of might prove some things to you. That might be sort of something, a way to sort of balance the mind with the heart a little bit, is to do something practical, conjure things, see that you can really start to manifest something in the world, that there is a capacity to have your free will as well. We're not just tied to the fates. Okay, so to help with that, let's have a look at some light on the pathway. So using a card from the Golden Path and also a card from the Lantern Oracle. So lights for you on the pathway of your 12th house. I am truth. Yeah, trust yourself a bit more. Trust yourself a bit and trust what's coming through a bit more. You would worry if you were sort of reading cards for people that what you were saying was accurate. Like you are so regulated around the mind with this sort of stuff, but trusting that what's coming through is true, because it is. There's a lot of spiritual gifts, a lot of spiritual mastery for you. And then the Lantern Oracle. Inner life. Your inner life is a garden to be cultivated. Yeah, it's not all about being hostage to fate. It's not all about the intellectual structures of things. It's also this deep inner life and what's coming in, and don't sort of feel like you have to second guess it all the time. It's what I keep getting for you. Okay, so let's see what astrology energy would be helpful for you in sort of integrating the lessons of the 12th house for you. Have Uranus, so allowing change and freedom big time. How you can really feel free. waning crescent, releasing control of the universe. So that which you can't control, being able to do it, and that which you can change, doing that. It's a bargain, you know. The universe, some of it is fixed and some of it isn't. And getting into the dance and understanding the dance. And Capricorn, and conjuring it, making it material. For you, the more that you can make something material. Some of you may balance all of this with the shamanistic sort of feeling around health, like bringing in alternative health or something. But others of you, it may be conjuring, manifestation and wealth and that kind of thing. There's something that can be done with your spiritual gifts that will prove to you that they are real, and will prove to you that you do have free will, as well as certain things that probably you're destined to do as well, like all of us. So let's finish off with some chakra energy. Firstly, around crystals and chakra together, 4 areas to focus on for your 12th house, and then we'll use the Astro Chakra cards to finish off the reading. So we've got throat chakra, so it's got something to do with how you communicate with others, and crown chakra and what you get from the highest realms, and like trusting that and being able to communicate it. With aquamarine in the throat chakra, this is about sensitivity and closure. So the affirmations are, I create my own closure. So yeah, when things haven't worked out or you felt hostage to fate, just let it go, move on. And I honor my sensitivity. Yeah, don't just give it all to the Queen of Swords. The Queen of Cups needs her time in the sun as well. Crown chakra, purple fluorite, dreams and visions. Yeah, there's something about dreams with you. I never lose sight of my creative visions, so don't. You can create far more than you think, and you can conjure and manifest far more than you think. And I pay close attention to my dreams. Yeah, do that. There's something coming through in your dreams big time. Okay, so to finish off, we'll just pull 3 Astro Chakra cards to bring it all together for you, pile 4. Creativity, so yeah, creative dreams and so forth. Third eye chakra, so sacral chakra, third eye chakra, and sacral chakra again. So yeah, you can create and conjure much more than you think. Your 12th house journey is understanding the power you have and how much flexibility you have, not feeling hostage to everything else and to the past and to the matrix and so forth. This is like having the sun and moon conjunct. So that's the alchemist. That's the person who really can conjure. That's the person who's sort of like married the solar energy with the lunar energy. So the sun, the light, the intellect with the moon, the emotions, the 12th house energy. So there's something, you can create this, and your instincts are really on point. Do not doubt them so much. You need, interestingly enough, with Uranus in the third eye chakra to get a little bit of detachment from trying to always define what all this means. Just living in the creative space and conjuring and bringing things into being will solve this dilemma that you have far more than constantly trying to second guess it. So you need to bring that sort of individual energy into the third eye chakra, into what you're picking up, kind of detach from it a bit and just go with it. Let it help you create and make decisions, and don't second guess the universe so much. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 4. I think you've got a hell of a lot of power, but I just think you doubt it. So hopefully this might help you be a little bit more in touch with it. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you've been with me through the whole series, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed it. If this is the first time you've seen one of these, now that you're seeing this, it means that the whole series from the first house now through to the 12th has been published and is in a playlist on my channel, so you can check out others if you want to check out the energies of some of the other houses. Either way, I hope that I see you in future pick a card readings.